My grandfather was a 3-time member of parliament, and that meant that he had a good chunk of land and some properties here and there. And one day, he decided to give my father a small piece of land to start life. So my father gladly accepted that piece of land, fenced it, built a house upon it, and introduced his wife, who is my mother, to the property. And they began to call it home. Then one day, I suspect one of my stepmothers got into the head of my grandfather and convinced him to chase my father out of that land that he had given him and hand it over to a different son. And mind you, my father was the first child of the first wife. So he was the eldest and the senior-most of all his siblings. Yet, he was chased from the land that he had built his house upon. And he had to watch his stepbrother occupy it. That was the first sign of deceit and deception that took place when it came to matters inheritance within my bloodline. Then some years went by. My grandfather passed on and went to be with the Lord. And at the time of his passing, I was a young guy. I was probably in primary. And so sometime later when I was in high school, I traveled to our upcountry home with my father. And when we got there, we got in his vehicle and he drove me to a piece of land just a few kilometers away from where we lived. And I remember my father telling me, "Son, that is your land." It was approximately 5 acres in size, nothing too big. Now, of course, at the time, I didn't think much of it because, what interest does a 14-year-old boy have in land? At the time, you're probably busy with studies or even football. So since I was too young to be bothered about land, one of my uncles, whom had been shortchanged when my grandfather's land was being subdivided here and there, approached my father with a proposition. The proposition was that he was to use my land to do some farming since I was in high school, and then once I come of age, the land will be returned to me, or at the very least, he will compensate me by either giving me money or purchasing for me a piece of land that is of similar value. Now, my father accepted the offer because why not? Why should land stay idle for several years when meanwhile it can be used to do some farming before it is handed over to the rightful owner? Time moved on. I became an adult and I began to do follow-ups about the property because I had ideas. When you become an adult, start thinking, what can I do in this life? Can I get into this type of business? Can I do this? You're looking at your options. And so I said, since I have 5 acres somewhere, I want to sell 2 acres and venture into the car importation business. And I told my father about it. But suddenly when we approached my uncle, stories of compensation and restitution had turned into, this matter is in court, I don't have money, give me time, and so on and so forth. It's been more than 10 years now. And believe it or not, as we speak, my uncle has built a house upon that land and his family calls it home. Now, naturally, just as any man would, I became very angry with my father and my uncle. And I was particularly annoyed because aside from the deceit, my father could not see that this was a generational curse. His father conned him out of his land, and he in turn, in cahoots with my uncle, conned me out of my land. So I got very angry and I began to formulate plans in my head which are not too good. And God saw those plans. So he approached me in a dream. And in this dream, he told me to never ever in my lifetime request for any property from my father or any relative for that matter. And from that day henceforth, I never gave my father a hard time. I let it go. When we meet, we both like politics. We'll meet, we'll talk about Donald Trump, we'll talk about Biden. So we never really discuss that issue. And that's because of what God told me in a very simple dream which I wrote down, and I took it seriously. And anytime I discuss this issue with someone, they even get angry when they hear the story. They get angry on my behalf. But why should they? Probably some of you who are even watching this right now have been conned by family out of your inheritance, and you have spent your whole life wondering why and wallowing in anger and misery. Now, the answer to this is in the book of Genesis chapter 14, where the 4 kings, Amraphel, Arioch, Chedorlaomer, and Tidal of Golam, went into war against the king of Sodom, King Birsha, King Sinab, King Shemeber, and King of Bela. Now, what happened here is that this alliance of 4 kings prevailed in the war, and they proceeded to loot everything that was in Sodom, including Abraham's nephew, Lot. And so Abraham set out with his men to pursue the 4 kings, whom he brutally defeated in battle and reclaimed everything they had stolen even from the neighboring kings. And when Abraham returned with everything, including what the king of Sodom had lost in battle, the king of Sodom approached him and made a proposal which will allow me to read to you. And I quote, this is Genesis chapter 14, verse 21. All the way to 24. And it says, the king of Sodom said to Abraham, keep the loot, but give me back all my people. And Abraham answered, I solemnly swear before the Lord, the Most High God, maker of heaven and earth, that I will not keep anything of yours, not even a thread or a sandal strap, that you can never say, I am the one who made Abraham rich. I will take nothing for myself. I will accept only what my men have used. But let my allies, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, take their share. So you can see Abraham refused to receive anything from the king of Sodom or the other kings, so that when he is blessed, nobody can come and beat their chest saying, I am the one who did it for Abraham, or he is now wealthy because of what we gave him. So some of you have lost out on family inheritance through conmanship or other means, or perhaps even a relative lied to you that they will connect you to a job somewhere and they failed you. Yet they are managers. The reason behind this is not that the devil is working against you. Perhaps that might be the case. But even so, at the end of the day, the main reason is so that when God opens the skies and pours his blessings upon you, no one will be able to open their mouths to say that you made it because of the properties or the assistance that they gave you. God will have denied them the space to beat their chests, and the only thing they can do will be to look on and say, glory be to God, for he came to your aid. And so as I end this video, the take-home message is, stop begging for scraps from your family and friends, and begin to beg and ask for an oversized blessing from your Lord your God, who is more wealthy than Elon Musk and Bill Gates combined. Now, for more videos of this nature, subscribe to High Altitude Ministries on YouTube and TikTok. My name is David Wafula, and that's it from me for now. Till next time, adios.